and gentlemen, welcome back to Smarktank Revolution, where we always kick out at two. We are your hosts. I'm Joey Business.
I'm Donnie Wonderful, the Benevolent Intelligent. Today, this is our fourth installment in our Retromania series, where we review, or at least have a discussion over every Wrestlemania chronologically. And right now, we're at Wrestlemania 4, dubbed as the 4-hour spectacular. The highlight here was the tournament for the vacant WWF Heavyweight Championship. And this one, I believe it's near and dear to me because it was the first WrestleMania that I ever owned on VHS. My parents had watched this back in the 80s and taped it and kept it. So I was always able to reference this one. And then, because when I found it, in the early part of the 90s, there was a few names that were wrestling in the 90s that were like underneath guys, I guess, back then. Right. And it started out with my favorite one, with the Battle Royal ending with Bret Hart destroying the trophy after Bad News Brown kind of like okay, so the first match was a Battle Royal. Battle Royals are really hard to release. It's tough to stand out in a Battle Royals. There's so much going on. Yeah. But the thing with this was the Hart Foundation were a heel tag team, and so was Bad News Brown. And then I think it had gotten down to I remember the Junkyard Dog was in the last three. And they Bad News Brown and Bret Hart both double teamed him and tossed him over and eliminated him. But then Bret Hart and Bad News, they were celebrating like, hey, they both won. Bret Hart says, bring in the trophy. And Bad News kicks him in the head or does a judo kick in the head and tosses Bret out, and then Bret attacks him and then breaks the trophy, and that starts his their first face turn. But that's why I remember that, because I'm a huge Bret Hart fan. If you're new to the channel, I'll tell you again, I am a biased Bret Hart fan to the 100th degree.
It is a understatement. Saying that you're a Bret Hart fan is like saying I'm a Ric Flair fan. It's just unbelievably understated.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny, as to say that Ric Flair is on in the background.
Yeah.
It's
the final farewell.
The final farewell, WWE 24. You know what? It just occurred to me, though. Somebody who's had more championship reigns than Ric Flair and John Cena combined. Do you know who it is?
No clue.
Vacancy. Vacancy has been the WWE champion and world champion so many times,
and that is the theme of this WrestleMania, because the first actual singles match that followed this was the first match in the tournament where Ted DiBiase defeated Jim Duggan. I watched this match. I remember, I've seen it over and over and over and over again, but everything about this one felt more or less like a, I guess what we would call like a glorified Raw.
Yeah. That was like a Raw 93.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing too, is Ted DiBiase was so good back then.
Yeah. Yep.
He was so good. He was always a world champion material that never materialized into a world champion.
So much so that he said, hey, I didn't need the belt.
And created his
own.
Yeah, and so he advanced. And then we had Don Muraco.
The Rock!
Yeah, The Rock, Don Muraco, with superstar Billy Graham defeating Dino Bravo with Frenchie Martin by disqualification. Not much is really said from my standpoint on that match. What say you?
They made tie-dye really fashionable, as I remember.
And that's probably why Foley loved his tie-dye so much at the beginning of his career. The following match was one of my all-time favorites, Randy Savage.
Where's the natural?
My definite all-time favorite, Miss Elizabeth, versus Butch Reed with Slick.
The natural Butch Reed.
Yep.
I remember his theme. The theme was the Jive Soul Bro. Just I guess a regular first round match. Randy Savage. I wouldn't call it quick work. The match was about 5 minutes long, as recorded on here. As you would expect, Macho Man wins, but like it was just. There wasn't really much of a story behind it. I mean, everybody's wrestling for a chance to be the champion. So, not nothing too special here. Not taking anything away from both guys, but that was just kind of the theme of the entire night. And then the next match again in the first round was Greg the Hammer Valentine defeating Ricky Steamboat. I remember Ricky Steamboat bringing his he brought his son. I think it was his infant son. He carried his son all the way down to the ring, and his son had the had the ninja headband on, and like he was kind of dressed the same way. Yep. I remember that. I'm trying to remember if it was I'm pretty sure it was a screwy finish. With Greg Valentine didn't win clean.
No.
But the match after that, I remember One Man Gang defeating Bam Bigelow, and this was Bam Bam would come back later in the 90s, and would be more established. And if you ever read Bret Hart's book. Bret Hart raves about how agile Bam Bam was and how good of a worker he was.
He really was. He was so underrated. As a matter of fact, our channel began with this list of people who never became world champion.
Yeah.
And my list had Bam Bam Bigelow. So did yours.
Yeah.
Because he was so understated as a threat and a big man presence. But he wasn't a wrestler who moved like a big man. He moved like a smaller, agile wrestler.
Yeah.
But he was just built like a bowling ball.
Yeah. And, looked like a bouncer, tattooed head.
Yep.
Like he.
Yeah, he had the whole everything.
Yeah. And then after that, we had Jake Roberts and Rick Rude that ended in a draw. Now, this was important because that bye ultimately went to Ted DiBiase. So It went to somebody that was just able to advance. I can't remember offhand who it was, but
don't either.
But not, like Jake Roberts is Jake, Rick Rude, love ravishing Rick Rude. I always loved his intro. Cut my music.
Yeah, Jake Roberts was one of the best mental tacticians. Ever. He could make, again, for years he made the DDT one of the most devastating moves.
When he did it,
it was devastating.
It was devastating.
Even now, like people do a DDT, it's not a Jake Roberts DDT.
Not at all.
Jake Roberts DDT was like world ending.
With so much conviction, man. I'm telling you,
so
man.
much conviction.
Jake. I think Paul Heyman said it on I think Beyond the Mat or something like that. What he said, Jake had it. Whatever it was, Jake had it.
Right.
The match after that was just a regular singles match. Ultimate Warrior defeating Hercules, and it was basically just a showcase match for to show off the Ultimate Warrior. In true Ultimate Warrior fashion, the match is only 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so didn't last too long. Here, the match that followed that, I think this was another one that had a bye. It was a rematch from WrestleMania 3, Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan, ending in a double disqualification. This match was only about 5 minutes, and like the significance there was, again, they didn't build this one up as much as they did WrestleMania 3. No, the selling point wasn't that at all. It was just
kind of a blow off.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be like, okay, let's do this and move on from this feud, from this angle. because they weren't going to do another Wrestlemania together.
Right.
Like they did at 3. So, yeah, let's do this and move on.
Yeah. And then after that, Ted DiBiase defeated Don Muraco. Like this is just kind of like the flow of this WrestleMania. It's really done, tournament style. Obviously, like as we mentioned before, the prize would be the prize for winning the tournament was winning the WWF Heavyweight Championship.
So, yeah, and then the next match was Dibiase versus Muraco.
Oh, that's the one I said. Randy Savage beating Greg Valentine.
I'm sorry. Yep.
Then Brutus Beefcake. Yeah. And the Honky Tonk Man. Mm-hmm. For the Intercontinental Championship. However, it ended in disqualification, so Brutus Beefcake didn't walk away with the title. And I believe before his motorboarding accident, he was supposed to be he's set up for an IC title run.
He was. I remember hearing this.
Next, we had a 6-man tag match with the Islanders and
Heenan.
And Bobby Heenan versus the British Bulldogs and Coco Beware.
Bobby Heenan collect multiple checks for many WrestleManias. Man, he was working.
He definitely was. And that was just a regular 6-man tag match. Just to give you a break and to give the guys in the break that are working the tournament. After that, Randy Savage beat the one-man gang. Yep. And then after that, we did have a tag team match where the Demolition defeated Strike Force. And I think this was, or was it the next following year? I think this is where Strike Force, I may be wrong, I have to double check. Strike Force separated after this, or it may have been WrestleMania 5. I'm not sure. But Rick Martel, wherever they do separate, Rick Martel turns heel and becomes the model and never looks back after that.
Yep. And then the next match,
the last match was the finals for the vacant, the highly coveted and seductive.
It wasn't the finals; it was the semifinal.
Actually, the final was when Randy Savage beat Ted DiBiase.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and that was your WrestleMania 4, guys. I mean, it was just, again, just like I said, for WrestleMania 3, just for an old nostalgia feel, you can watch them.
It's not one that you could watch all the way through. It's definitely not a 4-hour spectacular watch.
It's a
chore to get through.
There isn't a standout match here.
No. The only thing that stand out is the fact that the title was vacant and Randy Savage became the world title holder.
Yeah.
And that was good enough for me to watch. But it was like, come on. I'm not going to go back and watch it.
Yeah, and I guess, they obviously because it was tournament style, they had to stack this. Oh, I do remember Vanna White being on this.
Yeah. It was Trump Tower, so.
Yeah.
Yep. As a matter of fact, the following year was Trump Tower, too.
WrestleMania 5 was also at Trump Tower, and, there's really not much to say here, so I guess we'll leave it at that. And
why don't you guys watch WrestleMania 5 if you can make it all the way through?
Well, 4. We're not at 5 yet.
Sorry, WrestleMania 4. You can make it all the way. You can make it all the way through and tell us your thoughts and let us know. But I think it's pretty much a one-trick pony. If it's not for the title or the IC title, it's really not watchable.
Wow. So, there you have it, guys. WrestleMania 4 in our Retromania series.